Here's a Pokemon fact that I find a little bit strange. Both Teddiursa and Snubbull were introduced in the same generation, and when you compare their stats, it becomes quite obvious which one Game Freak preferred. Both of them have 60 HP, 80 attack, and 50 defense. However, Snubbull has 10 less special attack, special defense, and speed, coming in with 40 special attack, 40 special defense, and 30 speed. Of course, there are some differences. Teddiursa is very cute. Snubbull is basically the Pokemon that is ugly cute. My fiance actually really hates this Pokemon. Additionally, Teddiursa has the medium fast growth rate, while Snubbull has the fast growth rate, which is much better. Finally, if we examine their move pools, there are a couple of differences. So Teddiursa gets Earthquake, whereas Snubbull does not, and Snubbull gets Shadow Ball, but Teddiursa doesn't. Honestly, for these challenges, I would much rather have Earthquake, but I guess Shadow Ball will have to do. Through level up, Snubbull gets Tackle, Scary Face, Tail Whip, Charm, Bite, Lick, Roar, Rage, and Takedown. Also, it does get the Elemental Punches, which is great for coverage, but when your special attack is half your attack stat, these moves aren't that useful. After all, Snubbull is a normal type in Generation 2, so I foresee a lot of Headbutt and Return use in this playthrough. So because Snubbull is essentially just a worse Teddiursa, and I actually did that challenge fairly recently, it got a time of 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 15 seconds. I expect that Snubbull is going to perform worse than that. Right now, if I'm going to give it a prediction, I think it's going to clock in somewhere around 2 hours. However, growth rates have been very important in the past, and with a better growth rate than Teddiursa, just maybe this thing is going to be able to compete. Well, let's see. For this playthrough, I've given the rival Chikorita. This is specifically because he has Bayleaf in Azalea Town, and it has Razor Leaf, which is much better than the other two elemental moves that both Croconaw and Quilava have. In the first battle, he's not hard to defeat. I take a quick victory, level up to level 7, and then along the next route, I make sure to fight all of the optional trainers. After that, I catch myself a Bellsprout. This is nice because then I can use Cut and Flash later on in the playthrough, and after that, I head into Sprout Tower. During the fight against the final Sage, I level up to level 13 where Snubbull learns Bite. Now in Generation 2, Dark-type moves deal special damage, so this isn't going to be using my best attack, but it's decent for coverage. Also, it does have a 30% chance to flinch. Okay, so with him out of the way, I defeat the two bird keepers in Faulkner's gym, taking Snubbull up to level 14, and now it's time for our first major battle. Okay, Faulkner, the man with mud-slapping birds. At least in this case, they're going to see that Tackle is dealing more damage and prioritize it instead. However, I just get a critical hit on the first Pidgey and knock it out in one turn. He sends in Pidgeotto, I go for Tackle, it does half. Pidgeotto prioritizes Gust because it gets the same type attack bonus. And yeah, I just knock it out on the next turn, so that was a very easy first gym. With that badge, I get a 12.5% boost to my attack stat, which is perfect for Snubbull, and I also get the TM for Mud Slap, which by the way, Snubbull can learn. Gligar, of course, is very sad to learn that. I teach it in the place of Tail Whip, and now I'm ready to proceed with my journey. Heading south, I make sure to pick up the Paralyzed Cure Berry, and then I'm going to fight all of the trainers on this route. In my Crystal playthroughs, this is becoming my standard approach. I find that just getting a little bit ahead of the already wonky level curve at the beginning of the game really catapults Pokemon towards success later on. In the cave, Hiker Russell catches me. He's the spinning trainer. Luckily in this case I have Bite and the Geodudes have bad special defense, so I'm able to make quick work of him. And here I want to mention another difference between Teddiursa and Snubbull, and that's the fact that Snubbull for some reason cannot learn Swift, maybe because it has base 30 speed, but Teddiursa has base 40 speed and it learns Swift, so I don't really know if that is a proper reason to take that move away from Snubbull. So for now my moveset is going to be unchanged heading into Azalea Town. But before I do that, I have to get by Hiker Anthony, who is the spinner just outside of the cave. I am going to save for this battle because he has a Machop that has low kick. It's going to be super effective against Snubbull. Also, I want to introduce to all of you his art, because I figured he has given me enough resets to deserve it. Plus, we don't actually have any custom art for Generation 2 trainers at this point. So, welcome to the roster, Anthony. His Machop goes for low kick. Luckily, it misses, and with that, I'm able to finish him off. In Slowpoke well against the first Rocket, I have a chance to learn the move Lick, which Teddiursa also learns. I find it kind of strange that normal types learn this move. Overall, I think it probably would have made more sense to make Lick a normal move and not a ghost move than in Generation 1. Lickitung could have had it, and it would have got Stab. Anyways, for now, I don't think it actually makes sense to teach Teddiursa this move, because for ghosts, I can just use Bite. I finish off the rest of the Rockets as well as defeating all the trainers in Bugsy's gym, and now, at level 21, I'm ready to take him on. Because he starts with 2 Cocoon Pokemon, I'm not particularly worried. I can just knock both of them out as fast as possible. Really, the only fear here is that the Kakuna poisons me, and then I have to take several turns to knock the Scyther out, and the poison damage all stacks up and allows its Fury Cutter to knock me out 1 turn sooner. But that scenario doesn't play out today. He sends in his Ace, and then I use Charm to lower its attack stat. Watching the footage back now, I'm not really sure that this changed much, just because I'm doing enough damage with Tackle to knock the Scyther out before it knocks me out, and cutting its attack stat in half really only sets it back to where it was when it first used Fury Cutter. Either way, Snubbull is dealing enough damage to 3-shot the Scyther, and with that, I have earned myself the 2nd badge. Unfortunately for Snubbull, unlike Teddiursa, it cannot learn Fury Cutter. So the prize from Bugsy's badge is basically nothing. I can just proceed with the game now. The rival is next. Luckily I have Bite for the Ghastly. I outspeed by 1 and knock it out in a single hit. Next is Zubat. Unfortunately, Tackle doesn't take it out in a single hit, but it just misses Supersonic, so I knock it out on the next turn. Okay, now it is time for Bayleaf. By the way, one of the best designed 2nd stage Pokemon. I really love this thing. It goes for Poison Powder first turn, my Tackle misses, I take poison damage, it hits Razor Leaf, I miss another Tackle, take more poison damage. Finally, my Tackle actually connects, doing about 1/3, and then Bayleaf sets up Reflect, so this is not going well. Its next Razor Leaf takes me under half health, my Tackle takes it to half, I take poison damage, it hits another Razor Leaf, taking me to red health. Poison takes me all the way down to 4 hit points, and as a result, its next attack polishes me off. Okay, so missing that many tackles should not happen in the next fight. However, this time the Zubat actually does confuse me, and I hit myself twice, and then it uses Bite, taking me under half health. I consume my berry, Snubbull hits itself again, I get hit by Bite, and then I knock the Zubat out. So now I only have orange health left over for the Bayleaf. Luckily, it goes for Poison Powder. My Tackle gets a critical hit, taking it into the orange. And then because Bayleaf and Snubbull are speed tied, I win the tie, move first with Tackle, and knock Bayleaf out. That was a very lucky win, but I will take it. After saving Farfetch'd, I backtrack to Azalea Town to talk to this guy. He gives you a free charcoal. This is going to be useful because once I reach Goldenrod City, I can learn Fire Punch, and I might as well have this item to boost its damage. And now that I can explore the forest, I'm going to get a major moveset upgrade for Snubbull because this guy gives me the TM for Headbutt, and this base 70 power move with a 30% chance to flinch is just so much better than Tackle. Alright, now let's stomp all the trainers on the next route with this much improved move. I love these supercuts. By the way, thank you so much, Rick, for doing these for us. It saves so much time knowing that I don't have to go in and do all this editing, and also Sean doesn't have to deal with it. We can focus our attention on many other things. So again, thank you so much. In the Goldenrod department store, I pick up the 3 Elemental Punch TMs. Then I explore the underground, picking up the coin case, a hidden super potion, and I also give Snubbull a haircut. After that, I grab an Abra from the game corner. Then I pick up Kenya, and after that, I head into the national park where I can pick up the Quick Claw. I think this item is going to be incredibly important in this playthrough, especially for Red at the very end. After all, Teddiursa really struggled against him, and that makes me very worried for how Snubbull is gonna do. After chatting with Floria, I teleport back to Goldenrod City, and now, after doing a little bit more training in the gym, it's time to take on Whitney. First, she leads with Clefairy. Luckily, I'm faster. I just really hope I can get the 1 hit so that it doesn't metronome something like Self-Destruct. Headbutt gets the 1 hit. She sends in Miltank next. And on the very first turn, it goes for Attract. Now, you might think in these Johto playthroughs that I should have a female Pokemon like I do in Generation 3 to counter Flannery's Attract, but in Generation 2, the Pokemon's gender is entirely determined based on their attack DV, so if you have a low attack DV, you are a female Pokemon, and if you have a high attack DV, you are a male Pokemon. As a result, all of my Generation 2 runs are going to be with male Pokemon. It does make Whitney a little bit harder, but luckily today, Headbutt does enough damage to 2-hit the Miltank, and with that, I have defeated her. Her badge brings a 12.5% boost to normal type moves, so you can see Headbutt's effective power is now 118. Plus, this badge also gives me a 12.5% boost to my speed stat, so these prizes are very good for Snubbull. Now, in my first playthroughs, I require myself to defeat the Sudowoodo, so I want a little bit more damage than Bite, and I might as well have a special move for coverage at this point, because I think Charm isn't that useful anymore. So I'm going to teach Ice Punch in its place. Now, the common dual typing of Rock Ground seems to suggest that these Pokemon are weak to Ice moves, but Rock is not actually weak to Ice, it just takes neutral damage. Still, Ice Punch is more than enough to take the Sudowoodo out. After that, I make a choice that I don't do with all normal type Pokemon, but I think for one as weak as Snubbull, I should do it now. So I'm going to backtrack to the earliest routes of the game, and this is entirely so I can pick up the Pink Bow on the first route. Now you might wonder why I don't pick this up when I go through here in the first place. Well, you can't. She only gives it to you if you've defeated Falkner, and I didn't want to backtrack after defeating him, just because this time I have Teleport, so I can use that to quickly get on with my playthrough. I grab the Mint Berry, the Nugget, defeat some trainers, and then I head into the Burned Tower. In Pokemon Gold and Silver, you can actually skip the battle with the rival here, but in Pokemon Crystal, there's a guy in Morty's gym who just forces you out until you unleash the beasts in here, so I have to take on the rival now. Unfortunately for me, the Haunter is faster than Snubbull, which I guess makes sense. It goes for Curse, which does affect normal types annoyingly. Luckily, my Bite does enough damage to take it out, so I don't take any Curse damage on the first turn. Next is Magnemite. I go for Mud Slap. This does 4 times damage and takes it out in a single hit. Okay, so the next 2 Pokemon are the reason that I wanted Ice Punch. It is super effective on the Zubat, allowing me to one-hit it, and also super effective on the Bayleaf, and I also get a freeze, which is really convenient. I knock it out on the second turn, and with this victory, I am now ready to face Morty. He leads with Ghastly, and I outspeed this one, so I can knock it out with a single bite. No curse so far. Next he sends in Haunter. I'm 2 speeds slower, and it successfully puts me to sleep with Hypnosis. Now, note that I didn't bring the Mint Berry into this fight, because I was thinking that the Quick Claw would allow me to attack first sometimes and defeat his ghosts a little bit more reliably, but now I'm regretting not having it. I do take the Haunter out, but then Gengar goes for Hypnosis and puts me to sleep as well. That's really frustrating. On the next turn, he uses Dream Eater, and that's it for Snubbull. So for the next fight, I definitely should be using the Mint Berry. I'm going to swap the Quick Claw for it now. In the next battle, I knock the Ghastly out once again, move on to the Haunter. Now it's going to move first, so it puts a curse on me before I take it down with Mud Slap. Gengar's next. If it uses Hypnosis, I will recover from it. It does, so it's good I had the Mint Berry. Bite does less than half. I take curse damage, Gengar goes for Hypnosis again, luckily it misses, and then my next bite gets a critical hit. That is perfect! Morty sends out his final Haunter, and in Generation 2, Nightshade does Ghost type damage, so he can't actually do any damage to me. I take damage from Curse, but it doesn't matter, and I finish him off. With that win, I have earned myself TM30, which is Shadow Ball, but for now it's not that useful. I might end up using it later in the playthrough when Ghost-type damage is more important. For now, I'll just keep my current moveset and head to the Lighthouse. By the way, I just want to mention one tip here. If you did hold the Mint Berry for the Morty fight, and you still have it through some miracle, do not take it into this fight against this gentleman, because his Noctowl has Hypnosis, and potentially you can burn the Mint Berry before Chuck. I know you can just get a second Mint Berry, but if you can save the resource, you might as well. During my time in the Lighthouse, I pretty much decided that Bite was useless. After all, it's special damage, and I have Shadow Ball now, so I might as well teach Thunder Punch in its place. I finish off the rest of the trainers here, grab myself a rare candy, and with that, I escape from the building, and by the way, I'm heading back to Ecruteak City, because I did forget to fight the Kimono girls. This has been happening actually a little bit too frequently lately, and I'm embarrassed to say that. I really do have to get back into the habit of fighting them as soon as I arrive in Ecruteak City. I've just just been prioritizing like getting hidden power, which is banned by the way in first playthroughs, or I've been prioritizing clearing out the other routes, that sort of thing. Luckily today, Snubbull is not a surf user, so I'm not leaving any damage on the table by doing this later. With that out of the way, it is now time to head across the sea to Chuck's gym, and this place could potentially be very scary for Snubbull. Up first are the trainers that I call the tag team trainers. I will have to get art for these guys at some point too. First is the black belt with Hitmonlee. This thing is quite scary because it knows both double kick and jump kick. In this case, it also has 4 more speed than Snubbull, so it hits a jump kick first, doing massive damage, taking me down to orange health. Okay, please headbutt, take it out. And luckily in this case, it does. So the next trainer that I have to face has a Hitmonchan, but luckily it has terrible special attack, so I'm not too worried about this one. By the way, the reason I'm using Headbutt is that Snubbull has more attack, but also the Hitmons have way more special defense than physical defense. Coming from Generation 1, it always seems like you should be using a special move against these things, but in Generation 2 and on, that is not the case. So with them out of the way, Nob is actually easy to defeat this time, and now I'm ready to take on Chuck. So here's something I didn't know about him. His Primeape actually has more speed than the Poliwrath. Poliwrath is actually so strange when it comes to speed. It is faster when it's a Poliwhirl, and then it evolves and it gets slower. So frustrating. They made Poliwrath so bad in Generation 1. Luckily the Primeape just goes for Rage and I knock it out in one hit. It's time for the Poliwrath. I am faster than it. I hit Headbutt, doing more than half. It uses Dynamic Punch. Okay, that's really bad, but it doesn't do enough damage. Still, it confuses me, so will I get through the confusion? And the answer is yes. I hit Headbutt, and Chuck is defeated. Okay, so in this video, I've been talking about a lot of the prizes that I get from the gym leaders. Chuck actually doesn't give you very much. He gives you Dynamic Punch, which is pretty much useless, unless your Pokemon needs something against Red's Snorlax, and it has no other options. If Return and Curse together are not getting the job done, like maybe Dynamic Punch can do it, but really, this move is just terrible. Also, his badge doesn't boost any of your stats, and it boosts the power of fighting type moves, but like, yeah, I'm not gonna learn any of those. However, I guess the true prize from defeating him is being able to use Fly. I head back to Goldenrod City and surf south from there, picking up a nugget and a rare candy. After that, I head south of Ecruteak City to pick up a magnet, and then I go head-to-head with the red Gyarados. By the way, when I was a kid, I would always use this Pokemon as a part of my team. Catching it at level 30 and being a Gyarados, I just felt that it was so strong. Plus, it learned so many good HM moves. However, this isn't always the best choice because shiny Pokemon actually have set DVs in Generation 2. Their speed, defense, and special DVs are all set to 10, and then their attack can be several different values, 2, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 14, or 15. By the way, the Pokemon's HP DV is calculated based on the other DVs. If their DVs are odd, then they get a certain value added to the HP DV. In this case, you can't have a particularly good shiny Pokemon in these generations. After defeating the Gyarados, Lance uses his Dragonite to beat this guy up, and then I head into the Rocket Hideout. In here, I end up teaching Snubbull Fire Punch over Mud Slap. After all, this move is super effective against the Magnemite line, and really that's the only time I was going to be using this ground-type move. Also, after I finish the Hideout, the next place I'm heading is Price's gym, so I might as well get prepared for that anyways. He leads with Seal. This Pokemon, just every time I see it, I think back to my Seal playthrough in Pokemon Yellow, and that was not fun. People were telling me I should do a replay of Seal on stream, and maybe I'll do that at some point in the future, probably in 2024. Dugong's next, it outspeeds, hitting Aurora Beam, doing very little, and then Thunder Punch gets a critical hit, knocking it out in one turn. Perfect. After I say no to learning Takedown, because that move is absolutely trash in Generation 2 when Headbutt exists, Price sends in Piloswine. It just uses Mist. Good job, Price. And then I take it to orange health with Fire Punch. On the next turn, I find out we're speed tied. Snubbull moves first, hits Fire Punch, and Piloswine goes down. So that is my 6th badge, and with it comes a boost to both my special attack, and in this case, not my special defense, but also a boost to my Ice-type moves. Okay, so now it's time to get mentally prepared for Jasmine, who is usually one of the hardest gym leaders in all of Johto. However, I think with the Charcoal and Fire Punch on my side, I should be fine. Okay, so up first is Magnemite. Will Fire Punch get the one hit? I hope so. And it does. She sends in Magnemite next, I go for Fire Punch again, knocking it out, and now I've made it to the Steelix. Luckily, this thing's special defense is about 1/3 of its physical defense. I go for Fire Punch, doing more than half. Steelix hits Iron Tail, and while this does drop my defense, it still isn't enough for Jasmine to take the victory. So, I've earned myself the 7th badge, and with it comes a 12.5% boost to my defense stat. And I have also gained access to the most boring part of the game, the rocket plotline. So I'm going to do one of these awesome supercuts through this area so we can see all the trainers that I fight. This is usually the route that I take through this building. By this point in the game, it doesn't really seem to make sense to me to fight many optional trainers. I do fight this one guy who's spinning around just because I don't want to have to fight him on the way out and have to take my time timing it out. It just makes more sense to fight him in most cases. After all that, there's Petrol at the top of the tower. He has 5 coughing and 1 wheezing. He's really annoying if you can't one-hit the coughing because then they can use either self-destruct or smoke screen or poison you with sludge. But in this case, Snubbull's headbutt is doing enough damage, so he's not a challenge. In the underground, I face the rival, and at this point, the type diversity of my moveset really means I'm prepared for anything. I can one-hit almost all of his Pokemon except the Haunter. It does land a curse on its second turn, but that doesn't matter. Well, maybe it does matter. The Sneasel actually survives my Fire Punch, so I take some curse damage. It hits Feint Attack on the next turn because it's quite fast. And now against the Meganium, I'm really hoping for a 2-hit. And luckily, I do have the range. I talk to the director, pick up the TM for return, teach it to Snubbull in the place of Headbutt, and once all that's done, I pick up 2 proteins and 4 carbos. Okay, so let's head to Ice Path. Obviously, the rocket plotline is completely finished. I want to mention a quick tip here, which is you actually only have to push 1 boulder down the holes. So you push the first one down like this, and then for the second boulder, you just push it out of the way and jump down the hole, and then head straight up. You bump into the first boulder, and then you can get onto the little piece of land in the center. After that, in the next area, I want to pick up the Nevermelt Ice. After all, this is going to be useful against Claire, who's, she's not next. I forgot to finish the second half of Radio Tower, so it looks like I am flying back to Goldenrod to take on this portion of the plot. Luckily, it is quite easy. I finish off the final Rocket Executive, head back to Blackthorn City, and now I can take on Claire. In this fight, I was pretty sure the return was going to one-hit the Dragonairs, so I brought the Amulet coin in just to get a little bit more money, and I was correct, return is one-hitting. As a result, I sweep through her first 3 Pokemon with ease and arrive at the Kingdra. It moves first, hits Surf, and actually does quite a bit of damage, but it didn't do more than half, so I'm not really scared. I should 2-hit with return, but I get even better luck because I get a crit, knocking it out in 1 turn. Okay, so I'm going to cut a bunch of the errands out here and just skip right ahead to the rival in Victory Road. After all, the things that I do is like picking up rare candies, stuff like that. I do it in every single playthrough. His team should be pretty easy, except for the Magneton. I'm worried Fire Punch won't one-hit, and it doesn't, allowing it to paralyze me. This is a little bit frustrating because now if the Haunter confuses me and uses Curse, which is what happens, I might end up losing. I finish it off. Kadabra comes out next. I'm going to use Return on it. Unfortunately, I'm paralyzed, so I take Curse damage, but after Kadabra uses Future Sight, doing nothing, I am able to hit Return, knocking it out. Okay, time for his Ace Meganium. I think I can do this. It goes for Body Slam, and this takes me all the way down to 3 hit points. Alright, I think I've lost. I don't think that Return is going to do enough damage. After all, Meganium is a very defensive Pokemon. However, in this case, the broken normal type move gets the job done. Okay, so I really underestimated my damage there, and luckily I am proceeding on now to the League. Of course, for Will, I think I should exchange my Amulet coin now for the Pink Bow, so let's do this. Okay, so this is usually one of the easiest battles in the entire Elite Four, and I think that that's going to be the case with Snubbull. While Thunder Punch and Fire Punch are super effective against some of his Pokemon, they're just not going to be as good as simply spamming Return. And in this case, I'm able to get through his lead 3 team members and arrive at the Slowbro without taking very much damage. Now, normally this thing does survive 1 hit. It does on red health, but it just sets up Amnesia and then goes down on the next turn. Alright, now it's time for his Ace Xatu. This one is faster, so it moves first, hitting a Psychic, doing about 1/3 to Snubbull, and then my Return takes it out. Alright, so that was an easy start to the league. Let's move on to Koga. Now here, Return is going to put in the majority of the work. It's going to take out the Ariados, followed by the Venomoth, and then Fortress comes in. This thing takes 4 times damage from Fire Punch, so I go for that, knocking it out in a single hit, and then Koga sends in Muck. Now, because I play a lot of Generation 1, it always feels a little bit counterintuitive to me to hit this thing with a physical move. After all, it has much less physical defense than special defense. As a result, Return is also able to get the one hit, and then Koga sends in his ace, Crobat. It's significantly faster than Snubbull, so it moves first, setting up double team, but Return still connects, and it takes it out. Alright, so I think Koga was even easier than Will. However, in the next room is Bruno. And if you didn't already know, in these games, he is much better than he was in Generation 1. Alright, so now it's time, let's get into this fight. Up first is Hitmontop. This thing is kind of trolly, it loves to use Dig and Detect, but in this case I just move first, hit Return, and take it out. Okay, now it's time for Hitmonlee, and unfortunately for Snubbull, this thing has 1 more speed, allowing it to move first and hit High Jump Kick, which does more than half to me. Now, while my Return does successfully knock it out, up next is Hitmonchan, and it knows Mach Punch. Because this move has priority, it hits first to take me down to low orange health before I finish it off. And then Bruno sends in Machamp. Okay, so Cross Chop doesn't have 100% accuracy. I guess it could miss. Also, Snubbull does move first and hit Return, but how much is it gonna do? In this case, enough to get the knockout. Onix is next. I was a little bit worried that Ice Punch wouldn't knock it out. After all, Rock is not weak to it, but in this case, it does enough damage. And with that, I have defeated Bruno on my first attempt. I really did not think that things were going to play out this way for Snubbull. Anyways, for now, I might as well take it, so let's move on to Karen. So she's definitely the strongest Elite Four member in Johto when you're doing a solo challenge. This is primarily because you can't switch out, and the Umbreon loves to set up Sand Attack on its first turn. With my accuracy lowered, I'm not sure that I'm going to hit the Vileplume, and that means that I could get paralyzed by its Stun Spore. Luckily today, that doesn't happen, so I get to move on to the Gengar. It goes for Curse, but then the accuracy drop causes Ice Punch to miss, and that is a big problem for Snubbull. This is because the Gengar is just trying to spam Destiny Bond now, and as a result, Snubbull goes down. I tried the fight again, this time hoping that Ice Punch would hit, and it does, but Gengar doesn't faint. As a result, it uses Destiny Bond and once again polishes Snubbull off. I switched to the Nevermelt Ice for the next fight to do more damage, but then I miss once again. It sets up Destiny Bond, and things are not looking good. Still, I am going to knock it out just to test the damage range. Now, the reason I'm not using Thunder Punch or Fire Punch with their respective items is that Ice Punch has a damage boost from Price's badge. However, even with this boost, it is not enough to finish the Gengar off, and so that is another loss for me. Unfortunately, all of these losses are just player error. Snubbull strangely learns Shadow Ball, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, so let's teach that now because it's going to be the perfect solution for the Gengar. In this battle against Karen, I didn't have my accuracy lowered at the Umbreon, so Shadow Ball is able to connect, and it knocks the Gengar out. Ice Punch takes care of the following Murkrow, and now it's time for her ace, Houndoom. It outspeeds, hits Flamethrower, luckily it doesn't burn me. As a result, Return is able to do full damage and finish her off. Alright, it's time for the champion Lance, and I don't think that Snubbull is going to struggle here. I have Thunder Punch for the Gyarados. Oh, it doesn't get the KO. At least this thing is basically locked into Rain Dance on the first turn. I finish it off on the next turn, and he sends in Dragonite next. Unfortunately for me though, it moves first using Thunder Wave, which paralyzes Snubbull, and that does not bode well for the rest of this fight. Now, my speed was 92, which means that I am speed tied with the first two Dragonites, both which have Thunder Wave. Luckily, the second one misses Blizzard, and I'm able to hit it with an Ice Punch, taking it out, and I move on to the Aerodactyl. It goes for Rock Slide, it flinches me, okay, fine. It goes for Ancient Power, my Ice Punch hits, but it doesn't knock the Aerodactyl out. Then Aerodactyl goes for Hyper Beam, which takes me down to 14 hit points. I finish it off. Lance sends in Charizard, but it's faster, so that's a loss for me. I tried again, this time holding the magnet to ensure that I would one-hit the Gyarados, like I might as well. I was figuring that Ice Punch was just doing enough damage to the Dragonites anyways, but then I misclick on return and like, it hits Thunder Wave, so I'm paralyzed. I don't even knock it out, it gets a Hyper Beam. Yeah, this fight did not go well. Everything spirals out of control, the Aerodactyl flinches me with Rock Slide, and that's another loss. Alright, so here's a strategy that has the potential to work. Once I'm paralyzed, if I have the Quick Claw, then I have the chance to move first, and this will hopefully prevent me from taking some damage. However, in this case, paralysis just prevents me from moving, and Dragonite is able to finish me off. Okay, here's a funny fact. With Snubbull's terrible special attack, the second Dragonite actually survives my Ice Punch when I don't have the Nevermelt Ice, so that means it is a roll. Luckily, I haven't taken very much damage, and then I freeze the Aerodactyl with Ice Punch, which is perfect. The Quick Claw activates against the Charizard, allowing me to one-shot it with Return, and that means for the first time I have arrived at Lance's ace. His, third Dragonite. I always found it so weird that this guy has 3 Dragonites. Because he's 3 levels above the other 2, I'm not able to knock it out in a single hit. Lance uses a full restore, I hit it again, taking it down to red health, and then it strikes back with Outrage, which does a lot of damage because my special defense is quite low, but still, I'm able to seal the deal with one more Ice Punch. Okay, so with that, Snubbull has cleared the league. I made this cute little supercut of all the characters just walking around in this room. No one's talking to each other, and then Mary's just like, hey, we haven't done the interview. As a kid, I always thought it would be kind of nice to do an interview. Like, let's talk about my achievements as a Pokemon trainer. Unfortunately, I had to wait until Generation 3 to do that, and yeah, when that mechanic arrived, it was not my favorite. Okay, so now I'm off to Kanto. Of course, I'm going to spend time picking up Curse. This TM is just so broken. After that, I want to mention another item that you can obtain in Celadon City. I have decided that instead of catching Snorlax, it is better to obtain the leftovers here in this restaurant. It's just in this garbage bin. Okay, so now let's take on some gym leaders. Up first is Sabrina. I kept Shadow Ball around just for this fight. I'm able to one-shot all 3 of her Pokemon as a result. The Alakazam did do a bit of damage to me, but I'm not really scared. It wouldn't even KO me if it got a critical hit. Now in Kanto I usually skip most of the gym leaders, but I am going to show the battle against Misty because things did not go according to plan. I figured that Return was just going to one-shot all of her Pokemon, and yeah, it even takes out the Lapras. I always think this thing has more defense than it does. Like in this case, the Quagsire actually has more defense, which I find really weird, and her Starmie also has more defense. But it also has the ability to use Confuse Ray. Snubbull hits itself once, I take damage from Surf down to half, and then I snap out of Confusion, knocking the Starmie out. I think if I had hit myself one more time in Confusion there, I would have lost. So I got a bit lucky. Anyways, let's proceed on and take on Blue. He leads with Pidgeot, and even though Ice Punch is super effective and has the badge boost, Return has a higher effective power, and it also leverages my much higher attack stat. Still, it's not enough to finish the Pidgeot off in one turn, but I have the leftovers, and I'm not taking very much damage anyways. Alakazam is next. It outspeeds, hitting Psychic, taking me down to orange health, then Shadow Ball finishes it off. Blue sends in Rhydon, I go for Ice Punch, but unfortunately it isn't enough. This allows him to use Earthquake, and that's a loss. Now you'll note here that I taught Curse in the place of Ice Punch. You might think this is strange because after all I have to defeat the Rhydon, but in Generation 1, 2, and 3, Ghost moves deal physical damage, so as I set up with Curse, this is going to improve Shadow Ball's damage. After I'm fully set up, I knock the Pidgeot out with Return, then Alakazam comes in, obviously Shadow Ball just polishes this thing off easily, and now against Rhydon we get to see why Curse really is so powerful. Well, Rhydon just goes for Fury Attack, so we don't really get to see that my defense boosts really mattered. After that, I go for Shadow Ball because it's neutrally effective, and I finish off the Rock Ground type. For Gyarados, I go for Thunder Punch because it's 4 times damage, but I really should have just used Return. After all, my attack stat is kind of unreal right now. Next is Executor, Shadow Ball takes it out, and now all that's left is Arcanine. I just need to survive its Flamethrower, and Snubbull does, and with that, I have finished off all of the gym leaders in Kanto. So as I was exploring Mount Silver, I realized that Snubbull was about to level up, and I think that it would be nice to do this now. However, I'm not going to level up just one time. I take it up to level 70, and this is so that when I face Red, I can be at level 80. So, without further ado, let's head into what is the most challenging battle in Pokemon Crystal. To counter Red's Pikachu, I need to use Detect to stop it from using Charm so I don't get my attack stat lowered. That scenario would really impact Snubbull's results in the rest of the fight. Then the Pikachu just misses a Thunder and I knock it out with Return, so that's a really nice start. Espeon starts off by using Reflect, my Return does half, and then I knock it out on the next turn. Okay, so I've made it to the Snorlax, and here I'm going to need to set up with Curse. This will minimize the damage that Snorlax deals to me, as well as maximizing Snubble's damage against the rest of Red's Pokemon. However, when you're a Pokemon as weak as Snubbull, there is a flaw to this strategy, and that's the fact that Snorlax can get a critical hit. In Generation 2, the chance of this occurring is 6.25%, and eventually it does happen to Snubbull, and this was on the turn that I wake up, so I've already selected Return, and as a result I knock the Snorlax out, which is not exactly the timing that I wanted, because now I have low health for whoever Red chooses next. Okay, he chooses Venusaur, so this might be possible if it just tries to knock me out with Solar Beam. The AI doesn't know that Solar Beam is a 2-turn move, so it might just see that it has the damage range for the KO and go for it. And in this case, that's what happens. Okay, so when Solar Beam finally hits, it actually does a lot of damage, but luckily I'm able to use Detect and then knock Venusaur out with Return. Charizard's next. I survive its Flamethrower, go for Return, and finish it off. Okay, so the only Pokemon Red has left is Blastoise. Because my health is low, it might choose Blizzard and just miss, but in this case it goes for Surf, and that's a loss. At this point, I am going to stop doing the in-depth narration and mention two things that were going through my mind. So the first one was the fact that Teddiursa really struggled against Red, but counteracting that is the fact that Snubbull just did quite well against Red. My thought process was that I could use the Quick Claw to counteract my dropped speed from Curse, move first against some of Red's Pokemon, maintaining higher health, and potentially winning. As you can see here, this leads to another loss where Blastoise just uses Surf. In the next battle, I don't get the Quick Claw activation against Charizard, and it does enough to knock me out. And then things took a turn for the worse, because Pikachu outspeeds, and it can hit a Thunder and get a critical hit, which takes me all the way down to orange health. That allows Espeon to finish me off. Also, I can just barely survive this hit from Espeon sometimes, move on to the Snorlax. However, if I have to use Rest against it on the first turn, then Body Slam is doing too much damage to me, and as a result, it can finish me off before I wake up. Also, it's worth noting if the Espeon doesn't attack me and instead it sets up Reflect, then Snubbull is doing not very much damage to it. It can survive and as a result, finish me off. Pikachu can also paralyze me with Thunder, which is obviously bad. And at this point, I think that all of the things had stacked up against Snubbull, and I should have clued in that I'm going to need to level up. I just kept trying, and no, this does not lead to good results. I have to reset over and over and over again. Alright, so here we are at 25 resets going into this next fight, and you're probably like, Scott, you're just being stubborn, like you should move on. Well, really what was happening was that first fight against Red gave me hope, and I was just like, yeah, the Quick Claw eventually is going to activate. It has a 23% chance in this generation, and I figured 1 in 4 is not so bad. However, there is just so much that can go wrong before I get to the Blastoise that isn't a good bet to be making. And finally, I realized that I was going to need an alternative strategy, so I decided to teach Snubbull Sleep Talk in the place of Curse, and then use the leftovers. Unfortunately though, this is just not going to work because the damage that Snorlax is able to put out when my defense is not boosted. With my tail between my legs, I think it is now time to do some training. So in Pokemon games, the way that they calculate damage is using a lot of functions called math floors. This essentially truncates off the decimal point, and as a result of the fact that the attacking Pokemon's level is used in the damage calculation, it means that I'm only going to get a significant boost to my damage ranges at levels that end in 0, 3, 5, and 8. So I'm going to take Snubbull up to level 85, and hopefully this will help. Now, as I'm doing this training, you're probably thinking, but like damage doesn't really matter that much because you are setting up with Curse. Well, yeah, leveling up also does improve my defense stats, so taking less damage and having more HP is also going to help. Plus, the strategy that I was doing before just isn't going to work, so I might as well increase my level by increments of 5 and see how it goes. At this point, I was thinking that Snubbull might just need level 100 to defeat Red. Alright, so the training's done. Let's take on Red again. I use Detect to foil Pikachu's charm, and then the Quick Claw activates, allowing me to knock it out for free. Espeon's next, he uses Reflect. My return now does more than half, which is nice. I decided to try to stall this Reflect counter out by using Detect 2 times in a row, and in this case it actually worked both times, so I got lucky there. I take a bit of damage from Psychic and then finish Espeon off. Snorlax is next, and now it's time to set up Curse. Okay, I just really need to hope that I don't get paralyzed by okay, I get paralyzed by Body Slam. That's annoying. Snorlax takes me all the way down to 3 hit points, but luckily Rest works and I heal up fully. I finish setting up Curse, rest up to full health, and then use Return to knock the Sleepy Bear out. Okay, now it's time for the Venusaur. It comes out, sets up Sunny Day, which is kinda bad. Luckily my Return knocks it out, but now I'm gonna take so much damage from Charizard's Flamethrower. It hits, and Snubbull just barely survives. However, my tiny Pitbull Pokemon is able to take the lizard down. Okay, so we are back at the Blastoise with red health, and I am once again hoping on the Quick Claw to activate. But in this case, it doesn't. However, Blastoise uses Blizzard, and it misses, allowing Snubbull to hit return and take the win. It clocks in with a time of 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 1 second, with 28 resets at level 86. This took 7 hours and 16 minutes of game time. Right now, reflecting on this result, I don't think that I would be able to finish Red off at that level, so the first place that I went to test was Red to see what level I would need to consistently get through him. However, before I describe the results of all of that testing, let's go back and jump into my optimized playthrough so I can show how I saved time up until this point. In the early game, I don't really change much. I fight all the trainers, get level 14 before Falkner, and then take an easy victory over him. In my first playthrough, I got quite unlucky against the rival in Azalea Town, but this time I don't, so I'm able to defeat him without any resets. Alright, so now let's move on to the Goldenrod City section of the game, and here I want to talk about the National Park. Of course, it's important to pick up the Quick Claw, but the real reason I'm here is to fight additional trainers. And this is basically the theme for this playthrough. I need to squeeze out more levels to get Snubbull to level 90 before Red. I continue my training in Whitney's gym, defeating all of the trainers there, and after that I take her on at level 30, so that's 2 levels higher than my previous playthrough. She's very easy, I just spam Headbutt and knock her Miltank out in 2 hits. Okay, so moving on to the rival in Burn Tower. Now here you'll note that I haven't given Snubbull Hidden Power. Normally this is when it shows up in playthroughs, and that's because I decided just to go with Hidden Power Dark. Yes, this is technically slightly more powerful than Bite, which is on my moveset at this point, but I figured I didn't want to waste the time just picking the TM up. I'd rather have the perfect DVs and save a little bit of time in the process. Okay, so now with the rival in Burn Tower defeated, let's head on to Morty. And last time I had some problems with this fight, but now I am 6 levels higher. This really benefits my speed stat. I move first against all of his Pokemon except the Gengar, so this time I'm able to defeat him without a reset. After that, I head out onto Sea, and I do a lot of training here. This gets me almost to level 46 before I face Chuck. The advantage of this level is that I'm able to outspeed both of his Pokemon. I'm also able to one-shot the Primeape. Poliwrath does take 2 hits. I'm going for Headbutt just in case it flinches. In this case, it doesn't. Poliwrath strikes back with Dynamic Punch, but at this level, I don't even take half damage. Luckily, I don't hit myself in confusion, so I am able to win without a reset. Okay, so it's time to fight a trainer that I very rarely fight in modern videos. It is Mystical Man Yusin. I'm just doing this because I want as much experience as possible with Snubbull. Now, all of this might seem like it's slowing me down, but in the late game, I'm going to save so much time with these extra levels. So I think you have a good idea of what I'm trying to accomplish here. Basically, overlevel as much as possible, fighting all of these weak Johto trainers, and then sweep all the leaders. And I actually make it through Claire with no resets. Okay, so let's get into the league. Of course, Will and Koga are not an issue at all for Snubbull, but that brings me back to Bruno. And with my previous playthrough, I really could have lost to him, but now with a higher level, I can move first against the Hitmonlee and knock it out in 1 hit. Of course, the Hitmonchan is going to get some damage in, but with even better damage output, I am insured to knock out the Machamp, and so he is a free win. Of course, for Karen, I know that I should teach Shadow Ball, so I put it in the place of Fire Punch. And then against her, I really want to point out the fact that Snubbull at level 64 is able to one-shot the Umbreon with Return. That is so satisfying. Because I'm able to take out her tankiest Pokemon in a single hit, I think you will anticipate that this entire battle is very easy for me. and now that I'm back at Lance, I'm able to one-shot the Gyarados with my higher level, as well as all of the Dragonites. The Aerodactyl does survive, it's a bit annoying, but I do manage to finish it off, and with that, Snubbull is off to Kanto. I'm not going to be stubborn here for Blue, and instead I just teach Curse right away. This gives me an easy sweep of his entire team. So now, with that battle out of the way, I am level 76, and unfortunately that's not quite high enough. I need to train 4 more levels up to level 80 so that I can use rare candies up to level 90 to face Red. Now in this training, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. I want to time things well, so that's why I'm not fighting the Elite Four. If, for instance, I got to level 80 after defeating Karen, then I would have to defeat Lance, and I really don't need to invest that time. I've also found that the highest level Pokemon that give the best experience are right outside of Red's room in Mount Silver. I finally get level 80 just before 1 hour and 50 minutes, so I think that the sub 2 hour finish is possible. Alright, so let's face Red and see if Snubbull can do it. Also, it might do this with no resets, which would be absolutely hilarious. Up first is Pikachu. I'm going to use Detect to foil its charm. After that, it goes for Thunder, and it paralyzes me right away. That's really unfortunate. My return knocks it out, and then he sends in Espeon. Of course, it sets up Reflect, and then I have to knock it out with 2 uses of return, taking psychic damage in the process. Snorlax is next, and I misclicked here. I selected Detect. I really should have gone for Curse. Snorlax uses Amnesia, which is very unfortunate because I gave away 1 turn of setup. It hits Body Slam on the next turn, but Snubbull survives on 10 HP. The Quick Claw activates, I get a rest, and heal completely. Now I'm at a higher level and I have +1 defense, and this is going to give me a much easier time setting up against the Snorlax. If it ever paralyzes me, I'm going to rest right away to remove the status condition and then continue setting up. Now here's what my optimizations taught me. If I use 2 curses exactly, Snubbull will still have more speed than the Snorlax and enough damage output to knock it out in a single hit. This allows me to move on to the rest of the fight with green health, and I think that's going to be what I need. Well, also the Quick Claw is going to help me, so I move first against the Venusaur, knocking it out for free. Up next is the Charizard. I survive its Flamethrower and knock it out with a single return, and last is Blastoise. Once again, the Quick Claw activates, and I finish it off. So, Snubbull clocks in with a time of 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 27 seconds with 0 resets at level 90. This took 7 hours and 15 minutes of game time. So in that final battle, I did require luck. Of course, I need the Quick Claw to activate at least once during the battle, and it has to be on either the Blastoise or the Charizard. I got lucky against the Venusaur because it didn't set up Sunny Day, which would have really boosted Charizard's damage. However, there are enough paths to victory with this strategy that I like it quite a bit. The additional levels allow me to only use Curse twice, so I outspeed the Snorlax. That gives me a bit better flexibility so that I can time my rests and my attacks against it. After all, I want to go into the rest of the fight with good health. So what placement do these results get Snubbull in my tier list? Well, its time is just over 1 hour and 50 minutes, so today it earns itself the first spot in the D tier. By the way, I really think I need to do a replay with Stantler. I think that it's going to rank in the C tier. Honestly, it's quite a good Pokemon, it's just held back by its growth rate. Alright, so in this portion of the year in Pokemon Crystal, I have done playthroughs with first stage Pokemon. Koffing, Phanpy, Teddiursa, Pineco, and now Snubbull. And after all these playthroughs, I can definitely say that Crystal version is harder when using a first stage Pokemon, and it is also much harder when not using Hidden Power. However, I also have some other observations that I want to share, and this one specifically relates to the speed stat. Red's team features a lot of fast Pokemon. Pikachu, Espeon, and Charizard are all very fast, and the Venusaur and Blastoise are like decently fast. When you're a first stage Pokemon, it can be really challenging to move first against some of these titans, and as a result, the Quick Claw starts becoming very important. What I am noticing is that the quickest way is usually just to claw your way to a victory. Also, the fact that Curse really helps these Pokemon make up for their lack of offensive strength also really combos well with the Quick Claw. So I anticipate in future first stage videos that the Quick Claw is probably going to be the go-to item for most Pokemon. Anyways, we'll have to keep that in the back of our minds because now we are going to switch this series over and start doing some versus videos in Crystal. So when I head back to Johto next, we are going to be doing Venusaur vs Meganium, then Charizard vs Typhlosion, and finally Blastoise vs Feraligatr. I think this series of 3 videos is going to be a lot of fun, So stay tuned for it. It's going to start airing on the channel late in May. Like, subscribe, and ring the chime echo because I gotta read them all. If you support me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video. All right, so I just quickly want to say here before the credits run out, we have been compressing these credits down because there are getting to be so many people and they just start going by way too fast. So I'm going to probably have a little ramble at the end of every video to talk about something I'm excited about or something that you need to know. What I'm really excited about is the fact that coming up in both May and June, there is going to be more than one video a week for the channel. We're going to start May off with an absolutely awesome video, Starmie vs Tentacruel, and then there are going to be a bunch of other versus videos as well. Also, in Pokemon Yellow, I am going to start playing the game with some mid-evolutions, and I am really excited to see how Pidgeotto and Gloom do. Anyways, I think I've bought enough time now, so I hope you have a great day. See you in the next video.